There is a significance to that with regard to our story here. This is called what the military called Battery Bluff, including none other than Al Capone. Walked out on this pier, got onto the prison boat. Look at the fog just coming in, that's crazy. All right, this is Battery Crosby. Man, did I have to work for this one. Yeah, this one's definitely a little more shielded by all the overgrowth, but look at this. All right, I'm gonna say this fort has a little bit of a creep factor to it. All right, I'm gonna proceed with caution here because it's quiet and dark back in here. And welcome to San Francisco Bay. There's the iconic Golden Gate Bridge right across from us. We will be going there momentarily. We're going to make one stop before going there. And by the way, we are here at Fort Mason. Look at that, there's Alcatraz. That was fortified as well by the U.S. Army. And fascinating thing about San Francisco and all of its coastal defenses are the layers. They're just so, there's like layers and layers of history here. And when I first started researching this, because I've been here before, but I've never really tried to take on all of them. And so for the next 2 days, we're going to do our best to see as many of these as we can. And the curious thing about this is there's, at least 5 levels, 5 periods of occupation. You had the Spanish, then you had the Mexicans, then you had America. And even with the American occupation, we had the Civil War era, then you had what they call the post-Civil War and the Endicott era. I'm going to show you a lot of that here in the next couple days. Then you had the World War II era, and then you had the Cold War era. So there's so much military history here in California, and there's so much, particularly right here in San Francisco Bay. So we're going to see some of that here within the city itself, but a lot of it is down the coastline. So yeah, look forward to that. What do we got here? All right, so how about we open with a historical marker. So Blackpoint fortifications, again here at Fort Mason. It says here that both Spanish and American militaries defended the Deepwater Harbor just east of here, with artillery mounted on the strategic bluff overlooking the harbor and bay. Neither ever fired a shot in anger, perhaps because of these defenses. So in 1864, this was still called Point San Jose. Would not be renamed Fort Mason, I believe it was until like 1892? I'll have to check the dates. And so what we are looking at here is a 10-inch, what they call a 10-inch Rodman cannon. I guess named for the size of that bore, which that's a beast. There were 6 of these here. And you can see the emplacements for them right here. And just maybe 100 feet away, this is called Battery Spanish War. This was built during the time of the Spanish War, kind of as an emergency battery to protect the harbor. But what's interesting is by the time the battery was built, the Spanish War was over. And this was deactivated about 1910. There goes our chopper again. All right, before leaving, I want to show you this. There's a photo out there of a big boat. This was the embarkation point from here in San Francisco off to the Pacific Theater during World War II. Did I mention that we're going to be here 2 days? Day 1, we're going to be here on the south side of the bay. Day 2, we're going to be over there at the Marin Headlands. Man, I'm looking forward to all this, but that's fascinating, you guys. Another little piece of history I want to show you guys. So, yeah, here we are. Now we're getting there. Look at this, man. This smells wonderful up here. Wow, how nice. Now here is another really cool piece of history. This pier was built in 1925. for the Army here on Fort Mason. But this was turned over to the Federal Bureau of Prison in 1934. And as you can see, so here's our pier. And so, as of what I'm reading, it suggests that staff and inmates, including none other than Al Capone, walked out on this pier, got onto the prison boat, and were taken across to Alcatraz Island. And I'm not sure when this was shut down, but it's been shut down at least since 1989. And up until 1922, there was actually a little structure on the end of it that was built at the same time in 1925, and then that burned down. All right, y'all, I wanted to show you this cool, almost a little unknown piece of San Francisco history right here, pier number 4. I always enjoy looking at these old buildings. This is good stuff, y'all. This is good stuff. Look at this, National Cemetery. Now, of course, there was some history here prior to the United States taking this area over. Of course, the Spanish were here from 1776 until 1821. And they were here until their little colony of Mexico revolted and won its independence in 1821. Then there was the Mexican era that lasted from 1822 until 1846. And that lasted up until, of course, there was what became known as the Bear Flag Revolt. And then the U.S. took over the area beginning in 1847. Now, we're going to focus on the U.S. occupation simply because we're here today to see all these, the fortifications, all the ruins, all that. And none of the Spanish and none of the Mexican ruins are actually even exist anymore. So basically we're going to focus on these eras here. We have the pre-Civil War era, then we're going to have the post-Civil War, that of course is anything after 1865. Then we're going to have the Endicott era, which that begins basically about 1885. And then we have the, we're going to call it the World War II era. And that is any of the fortifications that were built prior to or during World War II. All right, that's what we're up against. We have examples of all of those throughout our trip today in today's video, but also in the next video. So with that said, let's get started. Oh, that is huge, huge. I don't believe this. I did it again. Thursday through Monday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is a Tuesday. Oh boy. All right. Well, let's make the best of it. And that's a whole lot of years of rust and corrosion. And a whole lot of cannon. Just reading an interesting note there that San Francisco Bay is the only inlet on almost 300 miles of coastline. All right, here it is. Here's what's left of Battery East. Basically, totally, entirely overgrown. But here's kind of a view of what it once looked like. It looks like it's pretty restricted because it's under a full restoration, they're saying. And I could not find a lot of information on this, other than they said it had 8-inch Rodman guns, and it didn't say how many. However, looking at this, I'm seeing at least 3 emplacements here. Wow, look at that. The Battery East and Battery West were the first 2 post-Civil War batteries that were installed. And you see what they've done here. They basically have these earthen mounds here, and they bury the gun behind them. And they've been Civil War era. Look at that. The brick behind it, or in front of it. And look at this. I got to take this just because this is an old historic tunnel. I remember reading about this, that this tunnel did connect the east and the west batteries. Look at this. Look at this. What I read was that that tunnel went through. That may have been part of a much longer system, where they said there was a netted pathway. They had netting, camouflage netting over the top between Battery East and Battery West. All right, we are here at Battery Lancaster, and I want to show you something here. Look up top here. You see the Golden Gate Bridge, and then you can see Battery Lancaster right here. 2 of those gun emplacements have been removed, and we are standing in gun emplacement number 3 right here, I believe. But look at that. That's before, or actually during, looks like the early stages of building the Golden Gate Bridge. All right, and here is the view today of Battery Lancaster. Only the gun emplacement number 3 remains, and even not all that remains. That's what we're standing on now. Guns 1 and 2 would have been over that way. It had a 3 12-inch cannon with disappearing carriages. It says Endicott area here in my notes. The range of these cannon were about 10 miles, and across the bay there is about 2 miles. At the time this was built, this was the only cannon here on the southern point of the opening to the bay. And apparently these were used to hook the cables in and move those big heavy guns around. All right, and this is Battery Cranston. As you can see, it's all fenced in. This is part of the Golden Gate Park staff. Looks like maintenance staff. Have some shops back in here. And what can we say about it? 1897 is when this place was first brought online. Had 2 10-inch cannon with disappearing carriages. And this was Endicott era. These cannon were taken out of service and salvaged in 1943. And this is Battery Marcus Miller. And 3 10-inch cannon on disappearing carriages. There's the, we'll walk up on the lookout here. My notes here says that the platforms from Battery West, those were removed and used here in the construction of this battery. You know, it's interesting walking through here and seeing all these batteries that we're going to be seeing today. It's like a museum for these old school batteries right along here on the San Francisco coast. A few photos here for the archives. Alright, so Battery Boutell. And look at this. Are these all the magazines, I'm assuming? Alright, built in 1900. This had 3 5-inch rapid fire guns. This is Endicott era battery. As said, basically these were this battery was built to defend against minesweepers and fast torpedo boats. The guns were dismounted in 1917 for field artillery during World War I. And this was actually constructed on the former site of Battery West. And I used 3 of that battery's magazines for storage. All right, we're going to be looking for that. More of these rings for moving the cannon around. Look at this. There's some settling going on here. Wow. Oh, there's the lookout. Wow. Alright, I'm trying to shield this from the wind, so hopefully you can hear me. But look, there's still some of the original timbers right there. Look at that. Alright, I hope the wind's not so bad. But so your job here, these 3 5-inch rapid fire guns, would have been to defend the entrance, which obviously there's the Golden Gate across it, and the minefields, and they had minefields all out, as I mentioned before, minefields all out through here. But your job would have been to defend anybody coming in, trying to tamper or destroy those minefields. How come it's always windy when I'm trying to record videos? Oh wow. But beautiful. I want to show you how, look how the salt air has rusted. These metal grab rails, look at that. It's crazy, huh? Oh, there's a photo. Alright, our next one, and man, they're just, look at this. I mean, just rapid succession, right alongside each other. Alright, this is Battery Godfrey. It came online in 1895. Has 3 12-inch cannon. So this is the Endicott era. And these are the first 12-inch guns in the U.S. Range was 10 miles. Cannon were salvaged in 1943. That seems to be a recurring date, doesn't it? All right. These the magazines here for the ammunition. Look at the size of these double doors. Wow. This is crazy. This is crazy. Look at this. I know I keep saying it, but this thing is huge. Wow. Alright, we've climbed the top Battery Godfrey. It's interesting. I've been noticing this already. You see how the concrete, there's the ocean of course. So incoming fire would be coming from there. Look how these rooftops are sloped back to deflect any of the shells coming in. Common sense in military structural engineering, I suppose, but it's fascinating to see it on such a large scale. And this brings us to gun emplacement number 1. These things are huge. Yeah, the first 12-inch guns in the U.S. right here. And we're just maybe 100 feet away from Battery Godfrey. So let's have a look real quick. You know, I was just thinking this might have been the plotting room, you guys. Yeah, that might be what this was. Wow. All right, now if my information is correct, we're coming up on the first post-Civil War era battery, which is Battery West. And yeah, look at the brick here. That might be indicative of something a little earlier than the Endicott era battery. So let's see what we find farther down the trail. Yeah, this had to be where Battery West was, because look at this, more of the same. And remember, a lot of Battery West was built over, and a lot of the parts taken from it to build the newer batteries. So yeah, fascinating. Yeah, so this may be all. We're gonna keep looking for a little bit, but that may be all that remains of Battery West. All right, so as we take in this, well, what a view, man, and look at that, the San Francisco fog, gotta love it. Battery West, by the way, 1873 is when it was bought online. And it had 12, get this, 12 15-inch rifled Rodman cannons. These were, again, post-Civil War era. All right, I'm hoping, is that showing up on camera? Look at the fog just coming in, that's crazy. That is, oh, that's just awesome. All right, this is in a restricted area, so we can't get there, but this is called Battery Dynamite. I'll put some quick notes on the screen here. Didn't do any research because I knew I wasn't going to get there, but look at that. Looks like more of a lookout, huh? And then there's more over here. Battery Crosby is going to make me work. Way, yeah, shrouded in fog, but way off at this point over here, beneath that. It's, what was it, just about a mile away, but you got to hike down to the coast and then back up to it. So it's going to make me work. It's going to make me work, but look at this, man, this quintessential Bay Area fog. Battery Crosby, whew, is demonized. Whew, this is brutal. All right, this is Battery Crosby. Man, did I have to work for this one. All right, built in 1900. This had two 6-inch guns with disappearing cartridges. So there's our number 2 gun. Which, and by the way, look at the view here. We're right on the coastal trail. This is fantastic. I felt like I was climbing Half Dome in Yosemite to get here, but it's fantastic. And then here is our first gun of the 6-inch. This is an Endicott era, and the range of these was about 8 miles. All right, and here is gun number 2. Again, these were there were 2 6-inch guns with disappearing carriages. What this battery was assigned to do during World War II was to protect the harbor entrance and minefields. And this battery and the guns, like so many other on the coast here, were scrapped in 1943. There are definitely some similarities with some of these. But, yeah, let's Battery Crosby, 1900-1943, 6-inch disappearing rifles. You notice that it's a whole lot quieter here. Nobody around, because you're only getting out here if you're doing a respectable hike. So that weeds out a lot of your tourists who are just going in for the views around the Golden Gate. Not that I blame them. I'm just saying it's interesting how this suddenly seems a little more remote. Yeah, now this is interesting. I wonder if this is some kind of a elevator carriage system that brought the munitions up from below out to this platform here, and then they can from there carry them over to the guns. All right, we've made it down to Battery Chamberlain. And this is another coastal battery designed to protect the bay entrance and all the minefields. This had 4 6-inch rapid fire guns. What's interesting about this one is periodically they actually do the National Park Service does a demonstration with this gun here. And as you know, what's cool about this, it's all covered up, but you see how it's behind. See how it's behind the wall there? That's a good example of a disappearing carriage. So when in use, they bring it above the wall. When not in use, they drop it behind the wall to help conceal it. So cool, cool little piece of history right there. More of these, the mystery areas here. I'm sure the munitions and whatever else they needed. Keep this thing operating, and then more of these hooks to help lever this thing in place. By the way, this one was taken out of service in 1948, so about 5 years later than a lot of the others. Now, can you see that building in the background there? Right up on that bluff behind all the greenery there. I wonder what that was. Is that a plotting room, maybe? If I didn't mention previously, I think I missed it, battery Chamberlain that was taken out of service and dismantled in 1948. All right, so we're going to buzz down the coast a little farther. We're going to go down to Fort Miley, and there's a battery there that I want to show you, but also another kind of a sidebar, a little piece of interest. So let's go have a look at that. Okay, we are here at an area of the city that they call Land's End. Still very much in the city, but as you can see through the tree line there, there's the ocean right out there. Really, it's a beautiful hike. And the trail, if you ever come to the city, I recommend this hike. There's a trail that kind of goes along the shoreline there, and I don't know if you can see it through the trees. Just in that cove, there's a cove there, and that's where the sutral baths were. I'll have to do a video on that one day. That's kind of neat, but that's kind of where the trail ends, in that area. But here's a hint of things to come. All right, and we have made it to Battery Chester here at Fort Miley. And here are the stats on this one. This had 3 12-inch cannon with 2 had the disappearing carriages, 1 did not. This is Endicott era, of course, 1903. The guns, like so many other we've seen today, removed and salvaged in 1943. I gotta say, this fort has a little bit of a creep factor to it. All right, I'm going to proceed with caution here because it's quiet and dark back in here. The size of these emplacements, oh my God. This is a huge battery. Oh my God, this thing is a monster. Wow, this is a monster. Yep. A lot of forest has grown between us and the ocean since this place shut down, huh? Look at that though. But what a view that would have been back in the day. Look at this, guys. Oh, look at this. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Look at this. Wow. And that would have been the view out on the ocean. And to think it's such a peaceful area now. All graffitied up. And no, I'm not going any farther in there. You know, again, man, I just can't get past the size of this place. It is huge. Man, these emplacements are so large, you could grow rather large trees out of them. Wow, look at this. Oh man, this is just, wow. What's the deal with, I mean, I know a lot of people call this graffiti. What do you call it? I mean, which graffiti is art? But
Graffiti. I mean, there's different types of graffiti.
I see a lot of it that, I mean, it's some beautiful work, man. Some beautiful work. I like a lot of this old historical stuff, so sometimes it bothers me when it's not done tastefully, but I look at it this way. I know it's gonna happen, so at least if it's being done tastefully, okay.
I think this area definitely should not just be gray, you know?
Right. Can I put a little of that in the video without you looking at the camera?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Here is the third gun. And because this is a totally different design than the others, this is probably the non-disappearing. In fact, I'm sure it is because this was the one that was built at a different date. All right, here's our little sidebar I want to share with you. It is somewhat World War II related. This is the Marine Exchange Point Lobos Lookout Station. This is built in 1927. And let me read you some quick history here while we're taking this in. In 1889, Merchants Exchange built a shingle lookout station where the USS San Francisco Memorial stands today. And this structure remained in use until 1927, when it was demolished and replaced by a new octagonal building nearby. It said the lookout and his family lived on the first floor, and the watch room upstairs contained a huge telescope and telephone and radio system. And finally, the station's purpose, as I found in my research, is to report vessels entering the harbor to their owners, the immigration department, the custom house, the press, supply houses, taxi companies, and hotels. What an interesting structure. All right, and down below, in an area that is totally off limits and accessible, this would have been where Battery Lobos was. And this put together in 1944, had two 6-inch rapid-fire guns. No earthworks though, all steel shields that were protecting it. And again, this was designed to protect the harbor entrance from minesweepers. Curiously, this was originally a searchlight outpost. And this, like so many other around here, was dismantled in about 1948. Wow, that is beautiful though. Love to be down there. Let's talk about the guide. Putting a graffiti on the wall. You know, as I mentioned in the video, I know it's gonna happen. I don't like it. You know, that's history. I think it should remain that way. I don't know, maybe I'm old school, but I think it's inevitable. A place like that is going to get graffitied, and yeah. And as he acknowledged, it is graffiti, even though it's, the guy does nice work, and I've seen a lot of that here in the city. So I do appreciate that versus just the gangster version of where they're just tagging stuff up, you know, marking their turf. So that, I get it. All right, so yeah, I'll leave it alone. I'll leave it there. There was even a documentary that was put out about that area and it being such a popular skateboarding area. So interesting, you know. I guess just something that's being repurposed, right? Yeah. Again, I'll leave it there. I'll just leave it there. All right, we're on our way to Battery Davis. We're here at Fort Funston. But there is actually at least one whale that's breaching out here. And, oh, there it is. Oh, well, way off in the distance. I know you guys can see it. All right, I'm thinking this has to be an old military road, and here's why. Look at this, y'all. We made it to Fort Funston. We are kind of like the southwestern corner of the city of San Francisco. But look at this. Look at that, 1938. Battery Davis. Look at the size of this guy. Wow. Our gun would have been right about here. Now, Fort Funston itself kind of opened shop about 1917. And by the way, it was this was the first fort of the coastal defenses that used radar as a system of fire control for the guns. Kind of made the end stations obsolete. I'll show you an end station tomorrow in the next video. So this is a World War II era gun, but 1939, and there were two of these bad boys. These are 16-inch case-mated guns, and by the way, that's what this is. This is case-mated. Range of 26 miles on this beast. And the guns were removed, get this, only 11 years later in 1948. So this thing had a life expectancy of 11 years. I just showed you how quickly the technology was changing at the time. And if you want to know how close we are to the ocean, here we are. Look at this cliff. Look at this. Now here at Fort Funston, they had some temporary batteries. In fact, they call this Battery Bluff. And as you can see, we're getting out here in the dunes. But an interesting little event happened out here. And I'm hoping that the tides are cooperative and I can show this to you. Okay, what I want you to notice here, look at the erosion along this cliff face here. And then even right here in front of us, look at this. There is a significance to that with regard to our story here. This is called, what the military called Battery Bluff. Now, what was planned here were for there to be 4 155mm guns on Panama mounts. Let me briefly explain the Panama mount. I've got a zoomed in photo. Do you see that circular piece of concrete? I've got a zoomed in photo of that to give you more detail. Basically, it was a big, like a half circle, a little more than a half circle with a metal rail in it, and with that they could pivot these 155mm guns, and they would rotate in about 180 to 270 degrees depending on the installation. But this is called Battery Bluff 1. This battery here, before they even got the guns mounted, it slid into the ocean in about 1941. I guess it was a really nasty storm throughout the winter, and they got these emplacements ready. But they slid into I don't think all of them did, but at least 1 or 2 slid into the ocean before they even got the guns in. Now, there was a second Battery Bluff, called Battery Bluff 2. It was south of where we're at now, which, by the way, we're looking south. San Francisco's behind us. They built that one down south of our 2 batteries. The entire operation was decommissioned in 1944 and everything removed. This I find fascinating. You see our rock outcropping here. And to look at this building down below, all this was up here on the cliff at one time. And look at that. That's how much erosion there is here on the south shores of San Francisco. But what a very unique story right here at Fort Funston. And what a beautiful area it is. right, we had to work for this one, but look at this. There's our second battery. Yeah, this one's definitely a little more shielded by all the overgrowth, but look at this. All right, we're gonna have to go have a closer look at this one. All right, let's see what we can do about getting into this thing. All right, a little bit of work, but not so bad. Yeah, I think we're looking at the same thing here, guys. Same as before. Wow, these things are just massive. Could you imagine the sound of a 16-inch cannon going off? Oh, wow. And this would have been, absent the brush and all the sand and dunes that have built up, this would have been the view out across the ocean. This, y'all, in the parking lot is a Nike missile launch site. We have one more stop to go to, and we'll talk more about these when we get there. But yeah, that's crazy. Right in the middle of the parking lot. Cold War era Nike missile launch pad. How cool is that? All right, y'all, this is as close as I'm going to get to our last target. It's right up there on that ridge. You can kind of see the white there. I'll put a photo up. And what I intended to show you before I just overcommitted and I guess took too long with the other batteries is what they call Battery 244, built in, it was a World War II piece. It was built in 1948, so yeah, obviously a little after the war. But it had two 6-inch rapid fire armor-piercing guns. And get this, had a range of about 15 miles. Decommissioned in 1950. Also on the site there, and let me share this with you, was a Nike missile site. That was SF-51L or 51L. That was dated 1956, and that was taken out of service in 1974. Now, the interesting thing about the designation on the Nike missile sites, for example, here around San Francisco, the SF obviously is San Francisco. 51, that's an area location. The L designates that was a launch site for the missiles. They also had a SF-51A, and that would have been for the administrative area or office or area for it. And then they would have had a SF-51C, and that would have been for the fire control. And all the Nike missile sites were laid out basically the same. And we're going to see more of that in the next video, because there are more Nike missile sites over on the Marin Headlands when I take you over there. So that's why I'm not too worried about this. We're going to be doing this again anyway. So. Oh wow, look at this. Wow. Definitely going to get some photos for the archives with that. Wow. Yeah, and check this out. What a great way to end the video. I saw this on the way up and thought, let me swoop this up on the way back through. What an interesting piece, huh? Now here's the mystery of this one. It'd be easy to say this is a lookout or like a fire control post, but the window, the observation window, would have been back up the mountain, not facing the ocean. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so what was the purpose of this? Wow. What was the purpose of this? But what better place than this to end the video? So that's it, you all. This is going to be a long video. Major effort, but you know what? I'm so glad we did it. I've been wanting to check all these out for a long time. I got in over my head there. This took a lot more time than I realized, so I hope the video doesn't run too long, and if it did, I apologize. But exploring all these coastal defenses, it's like going through a museum. So much history, like I said earlier, so many layers. So as always, thank you so much for coming along, and again, please provide any information that I overlooked, that I missed. That helps so much in the videos. It just makes the story so much more interesting. So, all right, we will see you in the next video on the other side of the bay in the Marin Headlands. And we're going to be doing more looking at things like this. So, all right, everybody be good. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.